This season, the Southern League Premier Division Central has been one of the most competitive and unpredictable leagues in the country. So much so that I'm in the process of visiting all 22 grounds and ranking them out of 40 points based on a number of factors which I'll go into more detail about later in this video. So far, I've visited 15 of the 22, with Worcester City's impressive six-way stadium leading the way with 33 points, and Bromsgrove Sporting's Victoria ground in second place with 31. How would ground number 16 compare to the other 15? Well, to find out, I had to make the trip down to Hertfordshire, right on the border with Essex.
Episode 16 of my Southern League Premier Division Central comes from Bishops Stortford's Woodside Park. And this game is about as middle of the table as it gets, with Bishops Stortford sitting in 11th and Kettering Town in 12th. And of course, this is my second attempt at making it here, where traffic on the M11 caused me to miss the kickoff last month. So let's hope this is a great game. Kettering Town have featured on this series a few times already this season. I've seen them at home, I've seen them at Alvechurch, and I've seen them at Bromsgrove. For Bishops Stortford, this is only their second appearance on this series and their second appearance on my channel. The previous one was at Kettering.
I was initially meant to visit Bishops Stortford's Woodside Park just before Christmas, but due to an accident on the M11, the normally 2-hour journey took closer to 6, causing me to miss the kickoff. So, this time I played it safe, travelling down on Friday to make sure I didn't encounter the same problem again. In fact, this time I arrived in so much time that I squeezed in another game, and you can find the link to my vlog from Friday night's Eastern Counties Division 1 game in the description under this video, but for now let's focus on Bishops Stortford. Bishops Stortford are one of the oldest clubs that I'll be featuring in this series, as they were formed all the way back in January 1874. They've seen plenty of ups and downs over the years, with the highs including winning the FA Trophy in 1981 and the lowest point in recent years being their relegation to the Isthmian League Division 1 in 1999. But Bishops Stortford have spent most of the 2000s playing at Step 2 of the non-league pyramid, and you can tell that this is a ground that's hosted football of a higher standard. After financial problems left Bishops Stortford without a home and ground sharing with various clubs in the area, they moved to their current home at Woodside Park in 1999. Located in extremely close proximity to Stansted Airport, their Woodside Park ground has a capacity of 4,525, with over 500 seats in the stands along the touchlines and terracing behind both goals. This stadium has a real old school feel, yet it is one of the newer grounds in the division. As I was staying in the area, I arrived at Woodside Park way ahead of the kickoff, and I'd read that the club have limited parking on site, but that really isn't an issue. Look at the size of this car park. That's bigger than a lot of the grounds I've been to this season, though a lot of that space is reserved for players and officials. With Kettering Town expected to bring a large following, Saturday's game was segregated, meaning the club shop was off limits to home fans as it sits just inside the away end. Thankfully though, one of the Bishops Stortford volunteers, Loz, was kind enough to escort me through to get a pin badge. This is a decent club shop too, lots of really nice items on sale. Then, of course, it was time to sample the food. I was told that Bishops Stortford's food was brilliant last season, but this year it wasn't the best. I've had much worse food at football, but a rollover burger isn't going to win any awards. I still ate it though, so it can't have been that bad. Going into this game, Bishops Stortford were 11th in the table, with Kettering Town just behind them in 12th, but these two teams were the early pace setters in the division, and were both a lot higher up the table when they met at Latimer Park a few months ago. I was at that game, so I've linked it in the description under this video. Before the two teams came out onto the pitch, I caught up with Chris from the channel Mullered Sports, who's also following this league very closely.
There's quite a lot of similarities between yours and my channel, because obviously we both started in the extra preliminary round in the FA Cup last year, but we're both doing the same thing in the sense that we're visiting all of the Southern League Premier Central grounds.
That's down to footballogy for me. I was introduced to the app at the beginning in pre-season by someone from Colville, and since then I've been hooked, and it's like, oh, you get a badge for completing all the grounds. So it's like, well, I've done a lot in the Southern League Premier Central anyway, so it's like that's the obvious one to complete, and this is like you, round 16 in this league for me today. So,
And I have to ask, so out of the 16 in this league that you've visited so far, obviously my series is going to be ranking the grounds, but which one would you put as the best ground that you visited?
that's a tough one. There's so many different grounds, shall we say. It's like the likes of Needham Market's good, but I think at the moment Zico is probably the best. So Stamford.
Stamford, yeah, nice ground.
Obviously hasn't got the character of, say, Royston, but there's 6 grounds to go, so I'll make the mind up at the end, I think.
And this is going to be quite a difficult one you don't have to answer, but is there any in particular that you were disappointed with?
It's all depends how you look. It's like the Harborough ground is lovely, modern, great sports complex, but the flip side is you've got all the hodgepodge stands. So they obviously had a stand there and then they put others in, which I understand, and bits and pieces like that. The other one, St Ives, I wasn't that impressed by. Westwood Park, I've been there a couple of times and it's, for me, a bit of a bog standard. Nothing. They're lovely people and the food there is great, I have to say that. And for me, it's not the greatest at the moment.
Totally agree with, St Ives, basic ground, but like you say, lovely people with amazing food.
Oh, absolutely.
On to today then, Bishops Stortford against Kettering Town. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Who knows what's going to happen? It's basically, you don't know what side Kettering are going to turn up with. They've signed another player this week. They signed one last week, and it seems they bring a player in every week and lose one or two. So who knows how Kettering are going to play. Bishops Stortford, mid-table, and on their day, a very decent side. So I'm predicting goals.
Let's hope so. What if you had to give a score prediction, what would you go with?
2-2.
2-2. Yeah, I think I'll agree with you on 2-2 there.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
All right, cheers,
really appreciate it.
So out come the teams with Bishops Stortford in blue and Kettering Town in red. And with the game starting at a frantic pace, with both teams going at each other, controversy struck in the 20th minute. Should Charlie Johnson have been sent off here? Denial of a clear goal-scoring opportunity has historically been a straight red card, but in recent times that rule has been eased up when it's inside the penalty area, as the goal-scoring opportunity is being given back. But a straight red card here. What do you think? Did the referee get this one right? Half-time, Bishops Stortford 0, Kettering Town 1, in an entertaining first half that was somewhat ruined by that red card. Kettering Town were in total control after that, but the home side did do well to only go in 1 down at the break, and still very much in this one. Half-time fun fact, Bishops Stortford's Woodside Park sits so close to Stansted Airport that you can see planes flying over almost every minute, and their away end is called the airport end. This ground would be ideal for someone who loves football and plane spotting, as you'd be able to combine both hobbies. On to the second half.
I think it was last season.
They've been this year as well.
And what a start this is to the second half for the visitors. Less than a minute after the restart, they put the game seemingly beyond Bishops Stortford's reach. Could they find a way back into this one?
Getting analysed.
Final score, Bishops Stortford 0, Kettering Town 2, in a game that was heavily influenced by that first half red card. Stortford did manage to stay in the game going into the half-time break, but that early goal in the second half seemed to kill off any chance of a fight back. I caught up with Steve Castle at the final whistle to give his thoughts on the game.
So I'm joined by Bishops Stortford manager Steve Castle. Bishops Stortford 0, Kettering Town 2. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, obviously, whether you're aware or not, but we went down to 10 players. We were sending off after approximately 20 minutes. Made a big factor in them going 1-0 up. Obviously, not only did you get sent off, there was a penalty against us, which they dispatched quite comfortably. And then we were always on the chase up, really. I didn't think there was an awful lot in the teams, especially up to that 20 minutes. I thought that it would have been quite a tight affair and possibly one goal either way had it stayed as level 11v11.
And I mean, I don't think there's any complaints really with the penalty decision, but what are your thoughts on the red card for that challenge?
Yeah, I totally agree. No problems with the penalty, but it's a toughie. It's a toughie, and I would have to have a look at it again. I initially thought that it wasn't warranting last man or whatever the recognition that the referee has decided. It's a double whammy in regards to a punishment. That it's a penalty, and also you've got the lad sent off. But the rules are the rules. Whether we agree with them or not, we have to, sort of dictated by them, and we take it from there.
And still a 1-0 down and a man down as well. You didn't look by any means like you were out of the game. You looked like you still matched them until obviously they've got the goal really early in the second half, which seemed to put Kettering Town in total control after that.
Yeah, I agree. And as I say, we just had an interview just now for the club, and it was always a case of us chasing something. I don't really think that it's a particular attribute that we're very good at. I think we're quite good at sort of soaking up pressure and getting things on breaks. And obviously, once you're 1-0 down at home, you've got to try and push things. And as I say, we're not great at that. We're a good solid team, and sort of its chances were very few and far between, and as you say, the second goal that just gave them that little bit of comfort, and really we didn't test their goalkeeper in any real terms whatsoever.
And obviously going into this game, both teams sitting in the middle of the table. How would you rate the start to the season for Bishops Stortford? Now we're roughly halfway through now.
I would class it as a huge success with circumstances that we've got, what we've had. I'm not complaining about it, but it's I think with a young group with not much experience, lads feeling their way in Step 3 football and excelling. And we've had more than our fair share of long-term injuries as well. We've got 2 of them here today. When we started, and we had a fantastic start in winning 6 games out of 6. And it's slowly but surely had took its toll. replacing, getting people back in and whatever. It hasn't been easy, but at the same time, it's a really tough league. It is a tough league, and you look at the teams at the bottom. They've got as equal chance of beating you as the teams in the middle and the top. There's a couple of outstanding teams, but generally we can all beat each other on the day.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Steve. Really appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome.
All the best at Stratford on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So final score, Bishops Stortford 0, Kettering Town 2. It was a decent end-to-end game until the incident in the first half, which was of course the red card and the penalty, and then going a goal down and a man down. It seemed to take the life out of Bishops Stortford. They couldn't really get back into the game. Held it at 1-0 for half-time. They go in at the break 1-0 down, but then the goal 2-0 right at the start of the second half. That kind of ends the game as a contest, really. Fair play to Bishops Stortford. They carried on going for it, giving it a go, trying to get back into the game, but at the end it looked more like Kettering were going to add a third rather than Bishops Stortford reduce the deficit. It'd be interesting to see what kind of game we would have got had it not been for the red card, because that really did change the game. But yeah, Kettering Town obviously deserved to win that game in the end. Let me know in the comments if you've been to Bishops Stortford, and what about these rankings? Where does Bishops Stortford rank? Before I jump into these rankings, let's take a look at what that result does to the league table. Well, in terms of Bishops Stortford and Kettering Town, nothing much changes, with them still sitting in 11th and 12th respectively, though Kettering are now only behind Stortford on goal difference. But as Steve said in his interview, this is an incredibly competitive league where anyone can beat anyone. But where does Woodside Park rank alongside the rest of the league? I'm ranking each club out of 5 points for their atmosphere, playing surface, food, facilities, view and accessibility, with a further 10 points on offer for my matchday experience overall, meaning each club is being scored out of a total of 40 points. And after seeing more than half of the league, we have Worcester City's Sixway Stadium in the lead with 33 points, and Bromsgrove Sporting second with 31. Could Bishops Stortford's Woodside Park break into that cluster of teams at the top end of the table? Let's start with the atmosphere. With Bishops Stortford being right on the Hampshire border with Essex, they have a lot of football clubs around them, but that seems to benefit them rather than hurt their attendances, as when teams like Arsenal and Tottenham are away, people choose to watch Bishops Stortford instead. Saturday's attendance was 591, but you'd have thought there were a lot more people there, as the fans, particularly on the home terracing, sang throughout. Though I am told there was a group of Italian groundhoppers who aren't usually there who made quite a lot of the noise. In terms of atmosphere, they're right up there with some of the noisier clubs on this list, so their score will reflect that. 3.5 out of 5. There are two sections that will let Woodside Park down, but it does appear that the club are aware of these issues, with the first being the playing surface. I'm not going to be too harsh, as the weather in recent weeks has been atrocious, but after seeing the near perfection of the pitch at Rail Bedford on Tuesday night, Saturday's pitch really does struggle to live up to those standards. The pitch was bobbly, slippery, and it did cut up majorly throughout the game. But Bishops Stortford are installing a 3G pitch from pre-season, so I don't think they'll be too upset with this low score. 2.5 out of 5. The food is the other section I was a little bit disappointed with, especially as people I've spoken to had commented about how brilliant it was as recently as last season. I had my usual cheeseburger, which turned out to be a rollover burger, and another case of order and have the food handed straight to you, when I'd rather wait a little longer for higher quality food. I have had way worse at football, so I won't be too harsh here, but Bishops Stortford do sit joint bottom of this category with 2.5 out of 5. Okay, so let's talk about Woodside Road's strengths again, starting with the facilities. Bishops Stortford have a massive clubhouse on site with so much seating room, as well as a neat little hospitality lounge. As I said at the beginning of this video, this has an old school feel, even though it's a relatively new football ground. Everything is so well maintained by the club's volunteers, who clearly take pride in their work. I was well impressed with Bishops Stortford in this department, so they get a strong 4 out of 5. This brings me on to the category in which I feel Bishops Stortford score the highest, the view. I always like an elevated view of the playing surface, and Woodside Park certainly offers that, as well as an unobstructed view from pretty much anywhere you choose to watch the game from. I spent the whole game in the home terracing, and despite me standing right at the back with it being really busy, I didn't have any issue seeing any of the game. So from joint bottom in the food category, they jump up towards the top end for their view, and it's 4.5 out of 5. Accessibility wise, I'm not talking purely about disabled access, but how easy these stadiums are to get to and move around in. And the first thing I need to mention is Bishops Stortford's proximity to the M11, which has caused them numerous problems in the past, including disrupting my visit last time. I won't be marking the club down for this though, as it's totally out of their control. If you don't consider the unpredictable M11, Bishops Stortford is easy enough to get to as it's right on the industrial estate. The club has plenty of parking on site, although they do warn that it fills up quickly on a match day. And in terms of disabled access, I didn't see a designated section inside the ground, but I feel like it might have been located in the away end. But either way, this is one of the easier grounds to get to and move around in, so I'm giving them a 3.5. This next section is arguably the most important as it's worth 10 points, and that's my matchday experience overall. Did I enjoy the experience? Yes. And how welcoming are the football club? Well, very much so. The game itself wasn't great, but I really like Woodside Park, and Bishops Stortford's volunteers should be really proud of the work they're doing. So I'm giving them a 7 out of 10. What does that do to the leaderboard then? Well, I feel like if Bishops Stortford sort out their food and pitch, they'd be sitting comfortably in amongst the cluster of teams at the top of the table. However, with those two areas letting them down somewhat, they scored a total of 27.5, putting them level with Stamford. The tiebreaker is my matchday experience overall, but that gives me a dilemma as I've given them both a 7 out of 10, so I simply have to pick one. Whose matchday experience did I prefer overall out of Stamford and Bishops Stortford? Well, marginally, and this is purely due to Mike and Loz, it's Bishops Stortford, so they end the day in 9th place. What did you think of these scores? Did I rank Bishops Stortford too high? Was I too harsh? Let me know in the comments, and please consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this video. Next up for me is another match day in this series as I head down to Stratford Town's Arden Garages Stadium as they take on Bishops Stortford. I'm getting a lot of comments about where I ranked Real Bedford in this series, so if you're curious as to why I ranked them so high, you can click the link on screen right now to find out. Do, 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 do.